Hello, this is the Roachia, and I'm back with another video. This is a continuation of the last video. I am going to still be doing about the same thing as I did on the last video, as far as running back and forth, getting more materials from my other place and bringing them here. What we're going to be talking about on this video, however, is old games, how games were, and how they are now. So we might as well get it started. Where we left off last video was we were discussing a little bit about a game called Wolfenstein 3D, which came out on PC first, and my dad got a demo version of this game on the 3.5 floppy disks that were actually hard. So they weren't the black floppy disks, they were a little bit smaller, and they had a hard case around them. They were still called floppy disks in a way because they were still related to the floppy disk and there was still a floppy disk inside of them. However, they actually held more information than your regular black floppy disk, and they were more durable. They would last longer and do better under, but I don't even know if you can actually get a computer that actually plays them anymore, because they were old games. But anyway, so it came out on PC quite a while ago, many years ago. I was still a teenager when they came out, and we played that demo. We passed that demo in every way imaginable, and it was a fun game. But when the game ended, the game ended. You did not get updates for the game. Definitely not downloadable updates, because I think this was even before the internet. So, or you might have been able to get the internet, but it would have been America Online type of a deal, you know, the dial-up style, where you actually have to use your phone in order to get the internet and log in and everything. So, I did add an axe to my inventory because I am going to take some of these chests with me back. I found out that I don't actually have chest. Actually, I want to get that. I want to take this wood. That way I could actually make me some chests if I really need to. But I'm going to take that, and I'm going to also take all of the fence. In fact, let's just empty this whole chest out. And I'm going to leave this chest. I'm going to leave that chest. This armor, I'm going to leave most of this armor right here, right now. We might move it, but we're not going to move it right this second. I'm going to take this stuff, and I'm also going to take these two chests here, and I would take this, but I don't know if I have enough room. Nope, don't have enough room, but we'll take that much of it, and we will take this chest because it is empty. I think I'm going to leave the rotten flesh for now. We'll come back for it because I do want to get all this rotten flesh over there to my new place. But I think I'm going to leave it for now because I'm going to empty out other chests. Like this chest, I'm going to take the last of it and take that chest. The furnaces, I think I'm going to leave them. The cobblestone, I actually might be able to fit the rest of this in. I'm probably going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slots, at least 4. And yes, I do have enough, so I'm going to go ahead and just take all of it. So basically what I'm trying to do is empty this all out. So back to Wolfenstein 3D. When the game died, it died. It was done. And for probably about 10 years, there was just no word at all about anything Wolfenstein 3D. Now the Wolfenstein franchise has added a few different games to it. I have not played those games, and the reason I have not played those games is because those are not the style of games that I wanted to play. They are not the games, like they resemble the old Wolfenstein, but they are far from the actual gameplay of the old Wolfenstein. And so, because of that, I don't play them. Probably, um, probably never will actually buy any of the new Wolfenstein games because it is a first-person shooter game, and I'm not really big into first-person shooters in the first place. But if I was, then I'd want a game more like Wolfenstein 3D than the Wolfensteins that are around today, because the Wolfenstein games around today are a lot more gray, a lot more dismal, a lot more dark. And the original Wolfenstein game actually had a lot of bright colors. Like one world was all purple. The walls were purple. Which, yeah, it's just much, much different than what you'd find in Wolfenstein today. And it was also much simpler, much more basic. Your bullets actually kind of curved a little bit, but that was fine with me, because if you pointed in the right direction and shot your gun, you usually connected. Whereas today, yeah, you might get a little bit more accuracy, you might have to do a little more sneaking, you might have to actually do a little more of a sniper type of a deal in situations, things like that. Because Wolfenstein 3D was kind of like Duke Nukem. That's probably the closest it was, only you were shooting Nazis instead of aliens, I think it was, with Duke Nukem. In any case, yes, it was a game that was against Nazis, and you did shoot Nazis in it. So, yeah, and I really enjoyed that game, and it ended up dying. So that's the way games worked back then. You made the game, you sold the game, and as you sold more and more copies of the game, you got your money from the game, and then that was it. You're done. You didn't have to bring out updates or sequels or anything of that nature because you were done. You made your money off of the game that you wanted. But then they decided, hey, wait a minute, people like this game. Why don't we put updates to it? Or not even updates. What they said is, why don't we do a sequel to the game? So first of all, it was sequels. It's kind of followed the same thing as a movie. Like movies, first of all, you had just the movie, and every movie was its own entity. Even sequels weren't all that popular at first with movies. Like you didn't really do much in the way of sequels, because they were more like plays that were recorded so that you could watch them at home. So you don't have to go out to the theater to watch them. That's the way that movies came around, and that's the way that movies started. And then people decided, oh, well, we like these, we want them at home. And then they were like, oh, well, we made this movie and it was really popular. What if we made another movie kind of like it, and we'll call it a sequel? And that was fairly popular. People liked that. So I'm basically just putting some chests around because I need some more chests in here. And that might make it difficult for me to get to that crafting table, but I really don't care right at the moment. I'm just trying to get everything to fit in here properly. Okay. So, yeah, with a movie, that's what the way movies got started, is that they were supposed to be like plays that you could actually watch at home instead of having to go to the theater to see them. People liked this, and the idea grew and grew and grew until it was a bigger and bigger franchise. As it became bigger, then people started thinking, okay, well, this movie was really popular. Why don't we make another movie that tells the story of what happened after this movie? And so they were able to do that, and it was a raging success at first, because everybody was like, oh yeah, we really liked the characters in this previous movie, so we want to watch the new movie because we want to see what happens to them in the next movie. And so that was popular again, and lots of money was made, and so now there's a sequel to every movie. or at least lots of movies. There's always lots of different sequels and prequels and all kinds of different movies, right? Well, that's the way that games were working too at first. So you'd get a game, and if the game was really popular, then you might actually get a sequel to it. They might actually make another game for it, another game that continued on and was bigger and better. That was the idea behind the games. And with games, it worked even better than it did with movies. See, with movies, the second one might not be quite as successful as the first, especially if the first one actually ended up not being all that great or as much as it was hyped to be, then the second movie might not be as good. And not only that, but the movies that came after often started getting the reputation of not being as good. With games, this was the opposite. The sequels seemed to be better because they added more into the game. The game was more interactive. The game was more than what the previous game had been. And whenever you start getting more in the next and the next and the next, more and more people want to see more and more like it. And so with games, sequels were popular. Why were they popular? Because they were like, I enjoyed this game, and the next game is looking like it will be even better. And not only is it looking like it will be better, when I get in and I play it, it actually has more than the previous game, but it builds on the same basic principles of that game that I loved. Whereas with movies, you didn't always build off the same principles, and even if you did, it was more a continuation of a story that you were simply sitting and watching, rather than something that you were actually interacting with. And so it actually worked for games to bringing out these sequels, these extra games. So, like one of my other favorite games that I played when I was younger was Warcraft. So the original Warcraft, I never really played all that much. I think I played it a couple of times a long time ago, but I never played the original Warcraft all that much. Warcraft Orcs and Humans is what I'm talking about. The very first one, Warcraft, that was ever released. Yes, World of Warcraft is not the first Warcraft ever created. Did I just blow your mind? If so, you're probably at least 15 years younger than me. In any case, so the original Warcraft was Warcraft Orcs and Humans, and what you do, and it was a lot really simple. It was actually what they called a god mode game, because you controlled your characters from over the top, looking down on them. And what you'd do is you'd build and you'd make them. There's been many games like them that have come out. They're strategy games. So it was a god mode strategy type of a game. This is kind of the genre that it would fit in. And that genre was all about games that... Okay, I don't want that. Okay, so that genre was games like Age of Empires and Warcraft, Starcraft, and not World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is not a god sim. It's actually a first-person strategy game, or first-person questing game also. I'm going to die by these zombies if I don't just start taking care of them. So apparently some zombies wandered into my village and started killing my villagers. Shame on them. But that's okay, because as long as I've got a farmer somewhere, he will feed them and they will multiply. See, there's a baby right there. And he is actually a farmer, I think. So yeah, I think we'll be alright. Yep, we got at least one farmer. So basically he'll grow up and he'll feed everybody, and then they'll breed and make more villagers. Actually, there's an adult villager right there that is a farmer. And, well, farmer-ish. He's actually a fisherman, but he can share food with people too. So he'll probably go share the food with them, and we'll get lots and lots of villages back again eventually. Probably not right away, but soon enough for me. Okay. Anyhow, so Warcraft was a God mode game, and God mode just means that you're looking over the top of your actual game, and it's a top down, top facing down camera basically on where you're building, and then you would build your town, just like you will in something like Age of Empires, probably one of the best known series. That's a God mode game, God mode strategy game. So that's the type of game that Warcraft was. And then the game that I played the most, and one of my favorite games, was Warcraft 2, which was the sequel to Warcraft 1, as you might imagine. In Warcraft 2, they added more troops, they added more levels, or maps anyway. It's kind of what it was, because you'd basically conquer it one map at a time. I don't know. There's many other of them, but they got more and more three-dimensional as it went on, and that's one of the problems that happened with Warcraft 3 is it got too three-dimensional, and your characters would sometimes get lost behind things. The other problem with Warcraft 3, so basically it extended to Warcraft 3, and this was years later actually that we started getting more and more of these, and I think World of Warcraft actually came out before Warcraft 3. But yeah, and World of Warcraft is also a very old game. It is a game that might be dying, but it actually is holding some popularity and still is entertained as a fairly decent game. But Blizzard has kind of moved away from it a little bit and started moving more towards its StarCraft games and other games like that. Blizzard is the creator of Warcraft, if you don't know. And so what Blizzard has moved towards now, instead of doing Warcraft, is they've moved towards things like Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm, things like that, which is kind of where the games of that type are going anyway. Okay, go in and go potty. So I'm recording at 9, and my son just woke up and he came out and he says he needs to go potty, so he's going into the bathroom. But anyway, I'm sure you guys did not need to know that. But so that's the way games started progressing. Is they would do, if a game was popular, they would do a sequel to it, and that sequel would not necessarily get updates. So take World Warcraft 2 for instance. It was a sequel to Warcraft 1. Warcraft 2 actually did get a expansion. That's what they used to call them. Is they would call them expansions, and this was an addition to the game. So the expansion would add more maps. It would add new campaigns. It would add different things to the game. It would add extra stuff onto the game. And this would be a separate thing that you would buy. You wouldn't download any content. There wasn't updates like they are today, and they definitely weren't downloadable updates. So, alright, and so yeah, that's the way games were. You had to get them updated, or you didn't get updates. You got that. So in today's world, so fast forward, what happened is they went to where they made sequels. Then they started making expansions to the games. So you get Warcraft, and then you get the get some expansions to it, maybe 1 or 2 expansions. And then the game was over, and then maybe you'd have another sequel, and then that sequel would actually have a couple expansions. Well, then World of Warcraft came along. I'm following the Blizzard line of games, and in the meantime, also StarCraft came along. It had an expansion, and then StarCraft 2 came along, and I think it had 2. And StarCraft 2 has just come along not too long ago, and it's actually a fairly popular game even today. But and it has a couple expansions, I think, now. But World of Warcraft came along, and it was a long-term game. This game was probably one of the longest-term games that we've seen so far. It survived for longer than any other game that I know of. On PC, anyway. It's even older than Minecraft, of course. So it's been around for longer than Minecraft. And World of Warcraft started and got going, and it started coming out with expansions and updates. Updates started becoming a new thing, and this game started to be played online. Well, once you started getting online games, you got online updates that could be downloaded. But because we were still in the old system, you bought each and every update as an expansion. So at this point, Minecraft is far better than that. Why? Because they have free updates. See, Microsoft is actually offering free updates. So when they come out and they say, this version of this game is not getting any more updates, I can kind of understand that. I mean, they're free updates, really. So if they say, we're no longer going to take the time and energy to continue to update this game, it's basically saying, okay, this game is complete. We're moving on to the next game. Or at least the next version of the game. See, Microsoft has been really careful not to call the Better Together or Bedrock edition a new game. Or even Minecraft 2. Because that's kind of what it is. It's kind of Minecraft 2. But because that is no longer the way people look at games, and people don't feel like that's the way games should be, that you should have to buy the new game, the new edition of the game, they feel like that you should automatically be entitled to the updates and the most current and up-to-date game. Because they feel that way. That is the new norm. And it is not the way gaming has worked in the past. So normally in the past, you wouldn't even get updates. And if you did get updates, they were most definitely not free. They were updates under the name of an expansion, and that expansion you paid for. Just like you would in World of Warcraft. See, one of the reasons that World of Warcraft has fallen out of favor and has diminished in favor is because every single update that they added, they made, well, the updates that they were adding as expansions, and each one of those had to be bought, had to be purchased from the company. Whereas Minecraft, every single update that they put out has been a free downloadable content update. So you don't even have to actually buy these updates. I mean, can you imagine that if they would have come out and with every single update, especially the major updates that they've added for Minecraft, they said, we are going to charge you $20 for this new edition of Minecraft. And that new edition of Minecraft it's going to have this expansion now, and you can have this expansion, and you can play with this expansion. But if you don't have that expansion, that's fine. You can still play your regular game. You just don't get this expansion. So if you're looking at it as that type of a game, what they're basically doing is saying, okay, well, guess what? The Bedrock Edition is a new expansion. It's a new game entirely. But we're actually going to give it free to people who've bought our original game. And then what we're going to do is we're not charging for any of our other expansions that we add to this game. Instead, we're going to offer those free. And I just made a whole run without getting any stuff. But basically what I'm getting at is the people that are ragging on the fact that Minecraft is no longer going to continue to update certain versions of Minecraft. They're really getting down. They're showing displeasure as to the fact that they don't feel like they're being treated properly, and that Microsoft is only in it for money. If that was the case, then Microsoft would be charging you for each and every update. At least a couple of bucks. Because that's the way it was done in the past. That was the actual precedence. Was that you put an update to a game, you call it an expansion, and you actually had people buy it. If that was the case, the Better Together or Bedrock Edition would be an entirely different version of the game, and you would actually have to purchase it if you wanted it. And not only that, but they would still support the old one, and they would completely cut off support to the old ones actually. See, they've actually said that they still support those systems, and they still support a version of the game on every single system that they've got. Well, some of the older systems they don't anymore, but they're basically saying that those games are complete. They're not getting updates because they're complete games. They're done. They're done updating. And you can still play those, you can still enjoy them forever, but if you want to play the new Minecraft with the new updates, this is the version of the game that you need to play. That's all they're saying. And this is not something that hasn't been said before by many and many game creators. Like, you couldn't play the regular Warcraft and get the update for Warcraft 2. You couldn't play Warcraft 3 just by the fact that you bought Warcraft 2. And that's not the way that Minecraft's going to be working in the future either. I mean, you should count yourself fortunate that they're even allowing you to get all of these free updates. And now they're doing weekly updates even? Sometimes more than one a week? That's amazing. That's crazy. If you actually were a gamer 10, 15 years ago, that was unheard of. So anyways, this is the Roach Throcia, and I'm going to take off. And we will be back for another video at another time. Please hit that like button if you like the video. And if you understand what I'm talking about, because I'm sure that a lot of you younger gamers don't understand what I'm talking about, just make sure that you count your many blessings, that you live in today's age where you get your updates week after week, month after month. You've got updates. You've got things to look forward to on your game, that your game is changing with you rather than staying the same forever. Because those games back then, they were great, but they could have been so much better if every now and then, even if every year, they gave you a little bit of an update to the game and expanded the game a little bit. Kept up with the times and made them better for the consoles and the things that they came out with. So, appreciate what you got. And I will see you guys later in the next video.